Hello, Carlie. Kuhtz. Welcome to Introverted Indies. We're so lovely and pleased to have you here. Would you just like to start off by introducing yourself?
Yes, I'm Carlie Kuhtz. I'm a writer of queer low fantasy, I think you could say. I'm originally from Germany. I started writing in English a couple of years ago, and Sloe Moon is my first English language series.
Amazing. That must be quite a challenge to write in a language that isn't your native tongue.
It is, but I also had like lots of friends saying, you need to switch languages. Your German grammar is gone completely. I've been living in the UK for 10 years, and
Yeah.
yeah, it shows.
Yeah. So have you got books that are sort of German books that you've published as well?
Yes, sort of, but they were like ebook only. I didn't really like I self-edited them a lot, but I didn't give them to someone to edit. So they were sort of a half-hearted attempt of at self-publishing, really. And this time, I thought there's like a much bigger market for English language fantasy, so I want to do it properly.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we all have books that we sort of start out with and we learn from and grow from. And I know I've certainly
Yes.
got some I look back on and think, oh my goodness, I can't believe I put that in the world. That's terrible. But yeah, would
Yeah.
you like to tell us a little bit about Sloe Moon, Tall Trees? I've read the blurb. It looks really interesting.
So yeah, it's basically I wrote Sloe Moon specifically because I didn't find myself in a lot of fantasy. I've always loved to read fantasy, but maybe because of the wish fulfillment element in it, you
Hmm.
don't really get a lot of body diversity in fantasy.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, the only people who are allowed to be of a different shape are usually called Sam, and they're men. So I really wanted to have like a book that, if I had found it at like being as a teenager, would have opened my worldview. That was the idea,
Mm.
like right for the teenager that I was, and who was trying to find themselves in literature and couldn't see themselves. And I also wanted it to be very um, based in bodily um, experiences. So it's very much about how does it feel to travel on horseback in the winter. What are the complications arising from that? Um, it is because, especially in the first volume, so it is a series
Mhm.
that will be published by end of next year. Everything will be out then. Um, yes, I also wanted to introduce the magic element very slowly. So it's very much low fantasy, where you start off with a world that could be ours, it could be a historical novel set in a different country, and then the magic element gets introduced as the protagonist gets closer to magic as well. I also wanted to write about a fighter who doesn't fight with blades but with
Mhm.
words, and that sort of introduced another challenge into the mix. And so the idea was, okay, I want to write about someone in a different story verse should have been the chosen one,
Yeah.
but all the circumstances were against them, so they weren't chosen, but they feel they really should have been, so now they need to do it on their own, under their own
Yeah.
steam. And they need to leave the community they're in, they need to go out into the world and gather the information to know more about what they are and then make the best of it.
Yeah. That sounds really interesting. A totally different take on sort of classic fantasy and a lot of the things we
Yes.
see on TV. Like, I mean, you're right. It's all these very beautiful people with their very thin, bodies and all those sorts of things. And I mean, how many of us are actually like that? I mean, I'm
Yes.
certainly not. I feel like I know that I am not that kind of person. I like cake too much. Um, yes. Have you always wanted to write fantasy, or have you sort of toyed with other genres, or has it always been fantasy was your thing?
I toyed with contemporary, but then I noticed that I couldn't really get into the intensity that of the story. So in fantasy, it's a bit easier to have high stakes. Um,
Hmm.
and I also wanted, yeah, maybe it's the wish fulfillment again. I wanted to have more control over how the world works. I think that is sort of the what I like about it, and to introduce a magical element that is um, a bit weird, that it's not quite like I quite like magical realism as well, but I don't think maybe the first volume is a bit like more magical realism than fantasy, but then it
Yeah.
goes to fantasy territory.
Yeah. I know that I personally find, I mean, I write a bit of fantasy, but I'm trying to write a crime novel at the moment. And definitely, I find that with fantasy, because there's no boundaries, it can kind of be whatever you want it to be. And I really love that aspect. But actually, having to write within boundaries, I've also, not bad, but within the realms of reality,
Yeah,
um, it's been sort of almost sometimes easier to describe things or to describe a scene because you can kind of see it or research it, whereas
yeah.
fantasy I know is completely in your own mind, and whereas I love that too. It's sometimes I find that harder, but yeah. So have you always wanted to write? Is it something you always did as a child, or is it something you came to later on in life?
No, I always told stories in at some like in some way or other. So I remember sitting before I could read, sitting with a picture book and my little brother next to me and telling a story about the pictures in the book that did not correspond with the story in the actual book.
Hmm.
But I just took the pictures and made another story out of them. So there always has been this urge to tell stories to or to take all the impressions from our world, mush them up, and create something new in
Hmm.
whatever form that could take. So I can't remember a time when I didn't scribble
Yeah.
in my corner. um, and it's very much if I can't write, then something's very off. I need to be quite vigilant about my mental health if that happens,
Hmm.
because it's such a big part of my life. I can't really imagine not doing it.
Yeah. No, I agree. I definitely feel the same. It's like what that itch you can't not scratch, isn't it? If you haven't done it for a while, you just feel it niggling at you that, you just need to get
Yeah,
some words on a page or
yeah.
something like that. Yeah. But do you tend to read a lot as well? Do you read fantasy or do you read broadly? What sort of
I try to read broadly, but also for research purposes, like genre research purposes. Especially recently, I have tried to read more new releases, trying to use my local library for that, so I
Mhm.
don't have to, yeah, just to buy so many books. But yeah, or just to see, oh, what sounds interesting, what book I might not like, but is just very much discussed at the moment in
Yeah.
within the genre, especially the whole brand like romantasy discussion. So I definitely wanted to know, okay, what is this all about?
Yeah, what's this all about? It's big at the moment,
is
isn't it? Romantically.
yeah, is this something that I would like to write myself, or something that's not quite my cup of tea? So yeah, I read for research purposes,
Mhm.
but also I'm part of a local book group, and we don't read fantasy with this one. So it's a lot of crime novels, a lot of like contemporary, and I also like to read some like classic modern fiction. I also really like. So yeah, I try to
Yeah.
broaden my scope, but I feel I need to read to feed my brain, um, and then it doesn't really happen that often that like an idea in one book then finds its way into my stories.
Mm.
Sometimes it's more like a concept. For example, if I read a book where I feel, oh, this magic library trope is really underused, but it's really something that I like to read about. How can I maybe write about it and
Yeah.
like do it in a way that interests me? Um, but I think uh, I I don't think I write for a very broad audience. I think it's quite niche. quite, I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely, I don't think I will ever write a romantasy, let's say it like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's my cup of tea. Like you said, I've tried a few of them because it's a real popular genre at the moment. But for me, I think smutty stuff is just not my cup of tea.
Yeah. I don't mind the smut. It just needs to be well written, and that's really difficult to find.
Yeah. Yeah, I've dabbled with a few, and I think I tried when Colleen Hoover was really, really popular. I thought, well, I just want to see what this is about. It
Yeah,
again
exactly.
was not my cup of tea either. I read one and thought, no, not for me,
Yeah.
really. So you said your book is one of a series. It's the first one.
Mhm.
When are we sort of, have you got an idea of like timescale for how you're writing them, or is it sort of a ongoing process?
They're all written.
Oh, they're all written.
They're,
Excellent.
they're all copy edited. The first three, so the first one is out now. The second one is out now as well. And then the third one is actually publishing in 5 days from now.
Ah,
So it's
how
basically,
exciting.
I wrote them almost like a big book.
Hmm.
I didn't have to chop them up later. I started out wanting to write a trilogy and then it got out of hand, basically. But I always knew that I would write them first because I tend to work with quite long schedules. I need time in between self edits to get
Hmm.
distance from the project. And I also didn't want to publish the first one before having like done at least the first draft of the last one, so I could go back and like
Yeah,
in case it didn't quite match how it ended.
yeah, yeah, it's a good
And
way.
because I'm definitely a discovery writer, I have an outline, but I never stick to it. It's like more like a jumping off point.
Yeah.
And there are so many things where I think, oh, because that happens in book 4, I definitely need to introduce this in book 2 or something similar. So I knew before the first one was published, I needed to finish the draft for the full series.
Yeah.
Um, and that's sort of how how it went. So will have 6 volumes, and the last one will be published November next year. So they're basically releasing on a 3 to 4 month schedule now.
Yeah. So have you got a publisher or did you self-publish your series?
I self-published. So I launched my own imprint
Yeah.
because I tried to query quite a long time, but then like starting off with a series always not a good idea for a publisher. That's
Hmm.
usually not what they want. But because it's not my first book, it's just in a different language, but it's not my first
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
I also knew it's definitely something I can finish. It's definitely like I will finish it.
Yeah.
And I want really, I don't want to be told to rewrite it because because I wrote it for the representation.
Yeah.
I had the impression that, oh yes, we want diverse, but not so diverse, and we want our diverse still to be very sexy. Um, so yeah, I got quite a lot of pushback around that. And then because my 9 to 5 is in academic publishing, and I have worked for small publishing houses before, like as interns, but also like full time. And I thought, I have been in training for this situation for my whole life. I can
Yeah.
do a lot myself. Obviously, it needs to go to an English language editor. That's something I
Hmm.
can't do myself. Um, but I can do so many things of the process myself. Why not like then the pandemic and then okay, if not now, when then? Like well, why not?
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, so this year I launched my imprint basically.
That's very exciting. So do you do all like your own covers and things like that, or do you get someone in to do
Um,
those?
I I had a cover artist. Um, I'm afraid she can't do the next 3 books, so it's going to be a bit of a shift in the cover design after the like in between the
Hmm.
2 lots of grays. I'm trying to get close to it, but it's never really ending up looking the same style. But yeah, so I try to get an artist for the cover. I do the typography myself, and like all the typesetting or the
Mhm.
converting into ebook as well. But I get like a proper language editor and a cover designer. And for volume 4, I got a sensitivity reader as well. So yeah, I'm trying to like do it as professionally as I
Yeah.
can with like limited means, but still, um, yeah, identifying what I can do and what I really can't do has been one of the really important steps.
Yeah, I think because people see the cover, don't they, first, and things like that. That's got to make that first impression. And without
Yes.
being unkind, when you see some books that have been self-published, you do think they look self. Not that there's anything wrong with self-publishing at all. I've self-published, but
Yeah.
people will judge a book by its cover, won't they? That's kind of part
Yeah.
of it,
Unfortunately. Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah.
People do that. So yeah, that's I think definitely one of those things that where it's good to either pay someone or to do a course in it or you know
Yeah.
get help with that. So
Yeah.
yeah, no, I think so.
I have
So I
some.
mean, for
Sorry.
you, right? Sorry, no, carry on after you.
I have some design experience. This is why I do the typography, but I
Yeah.
just knew that I can do sketches, but they're never as good as I want them to
No,
be. So if it's a typographic cover, I could probably do that, but I still want quite a few eyes on it to make sure that I haven't misjudged everything.
yeah. And do you have like a group of people that like better readers and things like that, people you can send your covers to or things to sort of bounce ideas off of?
So I found some really like lovely beta readers that by now know my style and are not afraid to say that doesn't work. Or we need more here. I tend to underwrite. We need more emotions. We need more. So I'm really lucky that I found like people I really trust to know what's best for the story. For the cover, I basically show it around, show it to everyone, and like, what do you
Yeah.
think? What do you? I usually will have a pretty good idea about the cover, so for like, so the once again, so the in this series it's going to be all, or I want it to be all landscapes, because it's so much about traveling. So and it starts at um, basically sun up, and then the covers get progressively lighter. I see if I can do the concept now that someone else is needing to continue them, but that was the original idea. And yeah, so I definitely show them around again because I need other sets of eyes on them.
Yeah, I think I know as an author, I think people often think, oh, it's quite like a lonely, a single sort of person thing. It's on your own a lot of the time, but actually you do have quite a team of people around you that I know that I found more recently quite a nice community of authors and people are so supportive and willing to help and it really makes a difference to be able to just message someone and say, oh, I'm just thinking about this, could I just bounce this off you? And
Yeah.
yeah, it's a bigger part of it than I think I ever realized is having that support network around you. So for you, what does a sort of normal writing session look like?
Uh,
Do you have a
so
favorite
I,
time of day? Or...
I'm so I tend to do a writing sprint in my lunch break if I can. And then also on the weekends, I tend to write like for a few hours. So my typical thing is that I write my first drafts in longhand. So I will take my notebook and so that's my at the moment and my pencil case and go usually to a cafe because I need a bit of atmosphere around me and yeah and just sit and write for it can take me like sometimes 4 hours so I
Mhm.
will buy like a lot of coffee between um, because sometimes it's just sometimes really drags and then sometimes you just look at your phone and says oh my god I've been here for 3 hours
Yeah.
it really depends on like where in the story I am, if I can really get lost in it, or if it's more of a, oh, I'm just starting out, I'm not quite sure where I'm going, so it's just I'm staring into space a lot. So that will usually, yeah, my writing sessions are usually in a cafe and usually like pen and paper.
Yeah. Do you get to write most days, or do you have like a specific day that is free to do that?
I'm trying to do it most days because I always, for me, it works better if I write like regularly, but maybe not like masses of words in
Mhm.
one go. Um, so yeah, I will usually write like, if I'm really on a roll, I will like write half a chapter each day. I always like with the notebooks, I always have like 10 pages, one chapter, and then I go from there. Um,
Mhm.
so I need a bit of, again, like boundaries. And then I know, okay, this is um, where I have to go, and how I go, I don't know. We will see. And usually
Do
that works out
you have
well.
yeah, that sounds good. Do you have a
Recent,
cafe that you like, a particular one you go to, so they see you coming and they know that you're going to be there having all your coffee?
yes. It's usually the one where dogs are allowed in because it just, yeah, that's just more, it's usually friendlier and just more bustle.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I have a local coffee shop that I treat a bit like my sitting room or
Yeah,
my office, really. But yeah, they definitely know my order by now.
yeah. They need to have your book somewhere. This was written here in the on display.
Yeah, maybe I should do like a launch type thing in the coffee shop. It's just,
Yeah,
but lots
it's
of
a nice
people
little link.
because I'm writing longhand, I have lots of people coming and asking if I'm writing a book. Because I think if you're on a laptop, people always assume you work, like
Yeah,
something very official. But if you like scribbling, they often assume that you write a book. And I there's so many people I now say hello to every day because they sometime they just talk to me,
yeah,
and that's really nice.
yeah. It's a really nice way of connecting with people, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah. Although you might be doing something solitary, people are interested, and it's nice to connect with people. The world is such a solitary place sometimes. It's
yeah.
nice to talk with other people. So, do you have any advice that you would give authors just starting out on their writing journey? Seeing as you've got your own imprint and you've written in different languages, what would
I
you
would
say?
probably say don't listen to anyone selling you stuff. If you need to pay for their method, I would be really careful because everyone is different. You really need to find what works for you, and that might be like a big writing sprint, or that might be chopping it up into little bits. It's you are the only one who can tell what works for you and let nobody tell you that you're doing it wrong. I think that's the main bit.
Yeah, just be true to what you want to write, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. And I think a lot of people try to follow the trend, don't they, of what's the popular thing to write. And these things go in and out of fashion. If you're not writing what you really want to write, it's not.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly. And if you also realize like how long, I think lots of people underestimate how long the production process actually takes and the editing process, and then they might start to write something that's very on trend at the moment, and then yeah, as you say, it goes away
it's
again.
gone.
It might resurface again in like 2 years, um, but and then you're publishing something that's actually behind the trend. So I feel it often doesn't work out. Yeah.
Yeah, I also don't think I'd probably enjoy writing something that was with the trend being romantic at the moment. I like a bit of romance in my story, but I don't like it to be the main plot line.
Yeah.
But I enjoy a bit of it in there, and I don't think I'd personally enjoy writing to other people's wants, if that makes sense. I like to
Especially,
write kind of to my own, you know.
yeah, especially I don't think a lot of people appreciate how many times you read your own book. Like the proofreading I'm doing
Yeah,
for volume 4. The cover isn't final yet, but I'm doing the proofreading at the moment. So I always like do like one proper book proof, because otherwise I so much goes over my head.
Yeah.
And that must be the 20th time at least that I read this particular book.
You get
So if
bored
you
of it,
don't
don't you,
like
after a while?
what you're writing about,
Yeah.
it's going to be really old really fast.
Yeah, because you do, don't you? You have to read and reread and reread, and yeah, if you don't like it, it's boring. But, yeah. So, do you have like a favorite book or a favorite film, things like that?
I think, and with the books, it's really difficult. So I tend to have like favorite books in different genres, I think. So I think at the
Hmm.
moment, and it changes too. I think at the moment, the book that I've reread recently, like the most times, was A Tale for the Time Being by Ruth Ozeki, which is sort of a magical realism thing. Um, and I think my favorite film it might be Amadeus. It's a bit older. It's like from the 80s, but I think it really holds up well. And it's sort of a bit fictionalized biopic of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. And yeah, I think it's just fantastic. Master and Commander is also very good. I tend to like historical movies.
Yeah, excellent. And do you have other hobbies, other than writing, or things you like to do apart from writing?
Um, my other side hustle is I make my own yarn. I spin it, I dye it, and I knit a lot. So I've started to do a few craft markets this year. So that's like the other thing that I do. But yeah, reading, knitting, like
Excellent. Look,
fiber crafting.
I'm a big
Oh,
crocheter.
yeah.
Yeah, that's my other thing. I like to crochet. I find
Yeah,
it frees your mind up as well. If your hands are busy, then
yeah.
often, yeah, like washing up or crocheting or knitting, then your mind is free, isn't it, to think about the plot holes or the bits you want to change or things.
Yes, also the repetitive motion is also like, it is a bit like calming you down, slowing your heartbeat. Um, yeah, definitely. It's a really good balancing thing.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's one of my favorite things to do. Got yarn everywhere, absolutely
Yeah.
everywhere in my house.
Yeah, I've put myself on a yarn buying ban basically. So no more store-bought yarn. I need to do it all myself, otherwise it's not coming into the house. Otherwise I would like end up with a mountain.
And then I always think buying books and buying yarn is better than drugs and alcohol. So, oh, dear. So, um, where can we stay in touch with you and where can we buy your books?
So my books are available everywhere. They're on the Rainforest site as well. But I'm on social media. I'm everywhere under Carlie Writes Stuff, one word. I think it's the same on every platform. And yeah, I do a lot of like short book reviews. That's something that I have started to do recently, like mini reading vlogs because I read so much fantasy as well. Yeah, and then I'm not yet. I don't have a like a web shop yet. At some point, that might come like along,
Yeah.
because volume 3 is out in 5 days. The first two ebooks are actually on offer, so it's quite low risk to check them out.
So is that on things like Amazon and things like that? Are they available there?
Yes, yeah.
Excellent.
No, I've wanted to go wide, which has its own problems, but
Mhm.
yeah,
It's a useful platform, isn't it? It does what you need it to do.
it
The
does. It's also very punishing to people who try to not work with them. I've found that, like, especially for ebooks, they don't really like it if you're not going via their platform.
Mhm. Yeah, I think I've got a few books that I would like to eventually self-publish, but yeah, it's quite a big world out there to know which platform is best to use, and it's not just a case of upload your book and off you go. There's buying your
No,
own VN and all those, other things. Yeah,
It's
it's a
also so
lot.
I made the decision to go with Ingram Spark for the one of the
Mhm.
simple reasons was the quality of the books. Because what you can't do on Amazon at the moment is to do like a duplex print. So I wanted to
Mhm.
have a double-sided cover because I knew that the paperback would be a bit more expensive anyway. So I wanted it to do like as beautiful as I could do it, and I find that Ingram Spark is a bit like the quality is a bit higher than Amazon.
Mhm.
But if for like wide reach, Amazon is still the best option.
Yeah.
Like if you're in the KU Unlimited program, these kind of things. So I'm definitely thinking about maybe doing it a bit differently the next time. So I think like for every for every series, for every book, there might be a different strategy.
Mhm.
It always
But at least
changes
then
with
you
every.
can learn then, can't you, and work out
Yeah,
what works best, and then by the end of it, you'll
definitely.
know exactly what you're doing, and it'll all be
Yeah.
excellent.
And then it changes again, and then you relearn.
So do you find things like marketing hard? I know for me that's a real struggle, knowing because you have to just post all videos all the time and things like to keep up. Well, you don't have to, but keeping what's the word visible and getting yourself out there is hard. And being on social media, I find it a real drain. I don't particularly enjoy it, but it seems to be what you need to do to get yourself
Yeah,
seen.
I think so. I noticed that I don't mind the posting. I mind being on the platform for
Mhm.
hours each day. That's what I don't like. Because, like, doing a video about a book I have just read and that I'm excited about and I want to talk about it, it's not a big problem. But yeah, I'm just staying on the platform and um, seeing what goes on there. I think that's more of my, because it's such a time suck.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
it's like so much time I could spend writing.
yeah. Omitting.
Yeah, and it's also I always am worried that if I post about my own stuff too much, that it comes across as too scammy or like spammy, like that it's like that's all you post about. So
Yeah.
if your comments like no one's interested anymore after the fifth time or something. So I'm trying to limit the number of times I post about my own stuff.
Yeah. No, I just struggle to think of clever things to post about or talk about. That's my thing. I
Mm.
think how many times can I talk about me writing on a computer? Other people seem to have really great ideas, but I struggle with it. But one of those
Yeah, I think
things.
it's definitely again because I from the beginning I was quite aware that I'm writing for quite a small niche,
Mhm.
or like I don't expect my books to be liked by everyone. Let's say it like that, because they're very queer. They're very like in between sometimes, and either you like that or you don't. And I think I have had some really nice feedback with people who really
Mhm.
click with them, but on the other hand, there must be so many people who just don't. No, that's not for them. They can't get into the story. It's just all too complicated. Fine, that's. But it also means that, like, of all the marketing that I do, it it doesn't automatically then go into okay that translates into sales
Yeah.
because they're who sees the books. So yeah, sometimes I think so. I'm trying to do more in-person events as well because I think sometimes then the networking works really well, like with other authors, with other organizations that can be really helpful. I have other ideas, so yeah, I really want to get more into that. I mean, this is 2024 was the first year of my officially self-publishing under my imprint, so it's sort of I always expected it to be a slow start, and that's definitely yeah, what I'm seeing, it's going to take a long while,
Mhm.
but I'm going to I'm writing anyway, so why not?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it takes a while, doesn't it, to build your fan base and to like reach the people that you are trying
Yeah.
to reach. It takes a bit of tweaking to get the people that are your people.
Yeah.
So
It's going
yeah,
to be word of mouth, definitely. So this is why I also try to, like donate books here and there, because it's going to be like people who discover it by mistake and or like by coincidence that I knew that from the beginning. So yeah, I'm trying to be not too frustrated when like the marketing stuff is just overwhelming.
yeah. I think most authors are in the same position with the marketing thing.
Yeah.
It's a hard one. It's definitely a
It's,
hard one. Yeah. Well, it's been lovely chatting with you, Carlie. Is there anything else that you would like to add, or anything else you'd like to tell us about your books before we finish?
um, I think the only thing that I can add that there's lots of it in the pipeline. So I have the next one coming out after the Sloe Moon series will be a duology that's more going into YA territory. Then I will have like a couple of novellas, standalone. So as I mentioned, I work with quite long schedules. So what I'm writing at the moment is like for 2028. Um, so I will like there's a stream of material coming your way.
So there's lots of good
Um,
things to come.
yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and it's been
Thank
really
you so
lovely
much
to
for
chat
the
to you.
opportunity. Yeah.
Oh, it was great.
Very nice.
Thank you. And have a great evening and take care.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.